I've been camping my entire life, something that I love to do. I love to go out in nature. There's just nothing better than being able to sit around a fire, enjoy some s'mores, and look up at the stars. One of my favorite places to camp is at a national park near where I live. The national park has a lake, hiking trails, waterfalls, and plenty of places to set up your tent and get away from it all. This national park is very popular, and usually there are people everywhere. But one Labor Day weekend a few years ago, I decided to go to the national park and try to get away from everyone else. Little did I know, I was about to have one of the scariest camping experiences of my life. Let's get into it. As I said, I love to camp, and I've been doing it for my whole life. My family would go camping every summer when I was a kid, and my dad even built a camper in the 90s that we used all the time. That camper still sits in our driveway to this day. I don't think anyone in my family wants to go camping anymore, so it's just kind of sitting there. Anyway, after my parents got divorced, I started going camping more by myself or with just one other friend. I got really into backpacking, and like I said, one of my favorite places to go is a national park not too far from my house. This national park is amazing. It has a lake that you can rent a boat on, hike trails that lead to beautiful waterfalls, and an abundance of places to pitch a tent. Usually when I go there are tons of people at the park. But the weekend before Labor Day a few years ago, I decided to go to the park by myself. I packed up my car and hit the road Friday afternoon. The drive to the park takes about 2 hours from my house, so I had plenty of time to get there before dark. When I got there, the entrance to the park was closed due to construction. But that wasn't a problem, because there was a clearly marked detour that would get me to the campground. After I got to the campground, I found a nice spot and started setting up my tent. It was one of those dome tents that you can set up in just a couple minutes. After I got my tent set up, I went to my car and started to take out all my stuff. I took out my bags, my backpack, my cooler, and a lawn chair. Then I realized I forgot to grab some bug spray from my apartment, so I told myself, oh, well, it's only a few minutes away. I might as well just head back home and grab it. So I packed up everything and headed back home. When I got back to my apartment, I grabbed the bug spray and headed back to the national park. When I arrived back at the campground, it was completely dark. It didn't get dark that early, so I thought it was weird that it was already completely black outside. But I shrugged it off and started unloading my car again. Once I had everything unloaded, I started a fire and went to bed. In the morning after I woke up, I got to thinking. When I left the night before, it was probably around 8:30 or 9 p.m. And when I got back to the campground, it was completely dark. I thought to myself, wow, it really gets dark early out here. It's weird. I'm pretty sure that there were only a couple cars in the campground when I left last night. So I thought to myself, well, maybe they all left in the middle of the night. I shrugged it off and figured it was just another normal day at the national park. So I got up, made some breakfast, enjoyed the morning, hiked a little bit, and then headed back to my tent to take a nap. Well, when I got to my tent, I noticed something weird. There was a big dent in the side of my tent, and it looked like someone had tried to crawl through it. Of course, I was freaked out at this point. I started thinking to myself, am I the only person in this campground? Was that a bear or something else? So I started looking around to see if there were any other signs of life. I looked in the bushes behind my car and even under my tent, but there was nothing there. At this point, I started to calm down and thought, wow, maybe I am the only person in this campground. That'll show them. No one wants to camp next to me. I sat there for a few more hours and thought to myself, wow, this place is so peaceful. No one's around. It's perfect. I'm going to have an amazing weekend. Well, a little while later, I decided to take another nap. So I laid down in my tent and fell asleep. About an hour later, I was awoken by what sounded like screams in the forest. Big, guttural screams. I don't want to sound like a little girl, but they really freaked me out. I sat in the tent, not knowing what was out there. Then I started hearing what sounded like heavy footsteps near my tent. At this point, I was so scared, I thought to myself, this is it. This is how I die. Some crazy person is out here trying to kill me. I don't know what to do. I started yelling and making tons of noise, and the commotion outside the tent slowly came to a halt. Once it was quiet again, I didn't move. I stayed perfectly still in the tent, not knowing what was out there. A few minutes later, I started hearing what sounded like footsteps again. It seemed to be getting closer and closer to my tent. I was frozen in fear, sitting in the tent, not knowing what to do. Then all of a sudden, whatever was out there started pounding on the tent. It sounded like it was trying to crawl inside the tent with me. I started screaming and making tons of noise. It sounded like a monster. That's when I noticed something. The tent that I had pitched was not my tent. The tent that I had pitched the night before was nowhere to be found. In its place was a small one-man tent, a tent that I don't own. I frantically searched the ground for my tent, but it was nowhere to be found. I started thinking to myself, am I crazy? What is going on? Why does this tent look like the tent that I own? And that's when I saw it. On the other side of the tent, underneath a tree, was my tent. I quickly ran over to it and started searching it for anything that could explain what was going on. I looked for anything that could explain why someone would set up my tent and then pound on it like a madman in the middle of the night. But I couldn't find anything. At this point, I was absolutely freaked out. So I packed up my things, got in my car, and drove home. The whole time I kept looking in the rearview mirror, expecting to see whatever was in the tent chasing after me, but I never saw anything. The next morning, after I told my mom what happened, she suggested that I should go back to the campground and look around some more. So that's what I did. Went back to the campground, and I started searching the area. I looked where I'd pitched my tent the night before, but I didn't find anything. And that's when I saw it. Right in front of me was the tent that I had pitched the night before. I ran over to it and started searching for anything that could explain what happened. I looked in the tent, but there was nothing there. That's when I saw it. Underneath one of the seats in the tent was a small notebook. I opened it up and started reading. Inside the notebook, I found a message. The message read, "You should leave now. Whatever you do, don't stay here." I was reading the note. I started to panic. Thought to myself, whoever wrote this note must be the guy who pounded on the tent last night. I thought to myself, what if he's still out there? What if he's watching me right now? I quickly packed up my things and drove home. I never went back to that national park, and I haven't gone camping since. I don't know if I'll ever go camping again. Maybe one day. You're on. But to this day, I still think about that national park and what could have happened to me that night. Now check out Scary Camping Discovery or watch another short